Hello?
Who's over there?
Right here.
Hey.
Before you mentioned aspect of chance in your music, how much, or if any, do you have looked at anything as far as what John Cage has been dealing with, or also had any experience with a group of artists in New York by the name of Fluxus?
Well, I've heard of Fluxus, and I've listened to John Cage's albums, and I attended a couple of John Cage lectures, and I did some research into that kind of aleatoric music and studied other aleatoric composers during the late 50s when that was turning into something to be reckoned with. But there's very few of those people that I thought did anything that sounded musical. You know, it was interesting, but I wouldn't compare it to any lasting musical expression. You know, it was just a sign of the times, and it was worthy as such. And if I listen to any of those records today, I just hear it as an indicator and not as a piece of music. Like the Bartók Second Piano Concerto is a piece of music, and John Cage's music for two prepared pianos and a something or other is, you know, that doesn't register as music with me.
You find that to be the case with most aleatoric music?
It depends on the piece. There have been some pieces that contain improvisation that I've enjoyed. A couple of Earl Brown's pieces I like, and what's that guy's name? Donald Erb.
Yeah, Donald.
Yeah. You know that record? Yeah, I like that. But most of the earlier things in the aleatoric vein were not too... Well, I'll tell you part of the problem. Whenever a composer relinquishes part of his control to a musician and says, okay, just fill in the blanks here, I'll trust your judgment, he's putting an awful lot of faith in somebody who may or may not be too interested in what his musical goals are. Whenever you're writing a piece of music and you say, this space is for you to fill out with an improvisation, you're really taking a lot of chances. And because of the attitude of most symphony musicians, or most of the people who were playing those early aleatoric pieces, they hated what they were doing. And I think that comes through in the recordings of that music very strongly, that the people who were playing that stuff just couldn't stand it, didn't understand what the idea was behind improvisation. And a lot of people who play in symphony orchestras have never been asked to improvise before, so they're very uncomfortable with it. And it's possible that some of that music might turn out to be better if it was recorded now with people who understand that kind of improvisation.
Yes, there's a question back here.
Well, first I want to thank George for the peanuts because I haven't eaten all day. Frank, I want to know, how much did it cost to put Apostrophe together, and how long did it take?
It took approximately 2.5 years on and off, because that's the span that the pieces cover in there, and the total budget was $65,000.
Frank, I want to know if you were the guitarist who's on George Duke's Feel album.
Say that again, please.
Are you the guitarist who's on George Duke's Feel album?
No, that's Abdul X.
Okay.
Frank, I wonder if you could, Frank, over here. I wonder if you can enumerate on some of the recordings that you did pre-Freak Out. I know there were some singles under other names, and I wonder if you could go into some of those.
Well, let's see. There was The Big Surfer, which I wrote and arranged, and it was performed by some other people. And then there was World's Greatest Sinner, which was my group with Ray Collins doing the lead vocal under the name of Baby Ray and the Ferns. And there was Memories of El Monte, which Ray and I wrote, that was performed by the Penguins. There was Grunion Run, which I played most of the tracks on, which was the flip side of a record called Tijuana Surf. It was also released by Original Sound. And there's about 3 or 4 others. I can't remember. Well, Big Leg Emma was not pre-Freak Out. That was done 1966. It was done at the same time as the recording sessions for Absolutely Free.
Yeah.
Yes. I have 2 questions for George Duke. I'm over here. Okay. George,
Yeah.
I have you performing with Cannonball Adderley on The Black Messiah. I have you performing Gerald Wilson Orchestra.
Yeah.
I have Reflections and Feel. Now, other than as a member of the Mothers, what other LPs can I find you on?
Other than what did you
Other
say?
than the four that I named, and as a member of the Mothers.
I still don't understand the question. Other than
Are
what?
you on any other
other
LPs?
records?
Am I on any other records? Oh
Yes.
yeah.
Could I
You want to know what they
get
are?
a clue? Yes.
That's out. Yeah, I'm on a Billy Cobham album called what's the name of that thing? Yeah, I forgot the name of it. It's the second album of his. Crosswinds, yeah. I'm on that, and I'm on a Louis Gasca album called Born Free or something. I don't know. I don't know the name of half of these records. I'm on, if you Flora Pudding, I'm on a couple of her albums, Stories to Tell, and one of Butterfly Dreams. And I could go on. I could take up a half hour with the list of records I do with other people. By your toll.
Okay. Last question is, could I get some brief history of George Duke? I mean, what inspired you, your style of play?
Ugh. Ugh. Okay. Well, my piano teacher. Well, when I was 7, my mother took me to see Duke Ellington. I guess I was about 5, and that inspired me. I said I can do that, and I was crazy though at the moment. I sat down and my mother bought me a little piano and I started practicing. And I used to walk up the hill once a week to take lessons from this little lady that lived up on the hill in the ghetto. And I did that for like 3 years. And but who inspired me? Probably the first record that really sent me somewhere else was I heard some James Brown record, and the Famous Flames. That really put me out. What was the name of it? It was Think. You know what? Yeah, I could. There was some in there. Anyway, there was that, and then I heard a Miles Davis record, Kind of Blue. That put me somewhere else. And I said I couldn't play like that. The only thing I could do is play. I don't mean to demean this guy in any way, because I love this cat, man. His name's Les McCann. I could get into that, you know. But I wanted to play more in the style of what Miles was doing at the time, so I went into that sort of thing. You know, I don't want to take too long with this, but I went to school and I studied all this classical music, and you know, got my degrees and all that. And but I wanted to play some music which involved some improvisation. And I love the blues.
Yeah.
Sure, my cry.
Great. I read somewhere about 5 or 6 years ago that you had made a film that was going to be 12 hours long or 6 hours long or something like that. I was wondering, first of all, if that was just a put on or whether you had something like that.
Just remember, don't believe anything you read in the papers.
Yeah, I read it in the papers. Yeah.
That was in Random Notes in Rolling Stone.
You got
and
it.
it was a joke. And I had nothing to do with it.
Okay, and secondly, when you made 200 Motels, when you cut that, did you transfer it to film and then cut it down on film?
The first editing was done in the videotape stage. A lot of the opticals that you see in there were done in post-production.
Uh-huh.
And then after it was the complete videotape, one reel of videotape was done. Pardon me. They transferred that to 35 millimeter, and we got a black and white work print, and then cut the work print down and laid the sound effects in against the work print.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd like to ask 2 questions. What is the breakdown now of percentages for a group, the group, and a producer and a record company from a record?
What do you mean? Breakdown percentages.
What does the producer get, and what does the entertainer get, or the artist get?
It varies from group to group, company to company. Every contract is individually negotiable.
Oh, so it's not a general form anymore. You can negotiate whatever you want or whatever you can get.
That's right. It's whatever you can get.
Okay, and what is the best route for a new artist to take to find a producer, to do his own demo, or to just knock on doors, or whatever you want to say?
Well, it always comes down to knocking on doors, whether you're looking for a producer or you're trying to find some money to make a demo. It's always knocking on a door.
Yeah.
But
is there a better route, though, to take?
Unfortunately, there isn't, because since the pop business became such a huge industry, and every time you turn around, there's another band that wants to do something, and they're not all good, and they're not all really worth recording, but each and every one of them believes that he's entitled to his shot, and of course he is. And the problem that a record company has is they can only record so many artists at one time, and after they've recorded them, they have a big problem of getting those things into a store. Like, I'll give you an example. Warner Brothers, their last album release, which they do a mass release every 6 weeks, there was 44 LPs in their release alone for that period of time, and every other record company has got a similar large amount of albums. So, you know, there's tons of stuff coming out all the time, and a record store, especially in the current economic slump, is not going to take a chance as readily on a group that he's never heard before, that is not promoting in his town, or, you know, not doing concerts or something like that. He's not enthusiastic about taking a bunch of these new albums from a new group from the distributor and putting it in his store, because he has limited shelf space, you know. He's only got so many little places on the wall where he can show albums, and he wants to show the albums that are going to bring him a profit in his store. So all this keeps reflecting back to the record company. The group comes to the company, and they say, we have some songs, you know, record us, and, you know, they're really not enthusiastic about even listening, so it's hard to just get them to pay attention to you. The best way, I think, would be to get your group together and play in an area that has a number of clubs where you can get exposure and build up a strong local following. And then based on activity in a certain area, like if you're playing in a club in this town, I don't know what the club situation is like here, but
there are none.
There aren't any?
There are none.
Well, there are certain towns in the States where there is a lot of club action, you know, and that seems to be the way a scene gets to happen, like San Francisco. I mean, when San Francisco cut loose, there were a lot of places for groups to play, and when there are places for groups to play, there'll be a lot of groups, and there'll also be good groups, just because the odds go up, you know, and so people get to play and develop their skills, and good things happen. So, you know, move to a place where there is a chance for you to play. Get in there and play, and when people notice you and like you and follow your group from place to place, then you can believe that there are people from record companies who go into those areas and check it out and see who's doing things. I mean, that's what happened recently in Austin, Texas. That's why it's turning into something down there. There's a lot of groups happening, and people started checking it out, and they got contracts.
Hi, Frank.
Hiya.
Where are the Underwoods, and what are they doing musically now?
Well, let's see. Ruth is, at last, I got a letter from her about 6 weeks ago. She was living with her mother in Long Island, and Ian is working in Los Angeles in the studios playing synthesizer on a lot of film scores. They had some marital problems. I do not know how they're being resolved, and musically, Ruth is not doing too much, and I already told you what Ian was doing.
Ian's on Freddie Hubbard's last album, too, by the way.
Is there going to be a combined effort of, will there be committed to vinyl some Beefheart and Zappa? And, like, is there another Hot Rats in your system?
Well, my system is full of hot rats at all times.
Good.
Yeah, and also some feathers, as he pointed out. Yeah, there will probably be a combination FZCB album, yes.
Are you at all interested in doing stuff for quadraphonic reproduction, or is that at a total dead standstill right now?
Well, let's see. Overnight Sensation,
and
Apostrophe, and Roxy are all available in quad. The new album, which we have coming out in June, is not going to be available in quad, because I just didn't have time to mix it in quad. But the 2-track mix of it is absolutely fab. So.
This is directed to the captain.
Captain?
I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about your Trout Mask Replica album. And also, specifically, what inspired the Old Farted play?
The old fart.
Right.
Not working.
Right, well,
Where are you, man?
I'm right here.
Ah! It's a nice painting, but I couldn't see who was moving.
Well, could you talk some about the album? What went into making it? And it's pretty amazing.
Yeah. I have the notes. When I was knee-high to a grasshopper, this black juice came out on a hard-shelled chin, and they call that tobacco juice. I used to fiddle with my back feet. Music for a black onyx. My tar room absorbed every echo. The music was thud-like. Thud-like. I usually played such things as roughneck and thug. Opaque melodies that would bug most people. The music was thud-like. Thud-like. Music from the other side of the fence. A black swan figurine lay on all-colored lily pads on a little conglomeration table of pressed black felt with same-colored shadows and sea-knob knees and
thud-like. The silence was thud-like.
Whatnot. The long hallway rolled out into odd beside the fly-pecked black doorway that looked closed on a tar lattice street.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'd like to ask Frank how he liked working with Jack Bruce, and do you think you'll ever get back playing with him again?
Well, it was an interesting experience, and we probably will not work together anymore. What was wrong with it? Nothing. Nothing at all, you know. It's just that, is he? He is? He's in jail? Well, see what I know about this stuff? George says he's in jail all the time, so that makes it tough.
Yeah, I was wondering what's involved, like with guest artists on albums. Like when, you know, if they have in the back of an album, like Shuggy Otis appears courtesy of, like, Sleazy Records. Does that mean that he's really appearing courtesy of Sleazy, or are they taking, like, a cut of that album? Or, like, how does that whole thing work with guest artists?
They don't take a cut. In fact, up until recently, some record companies wouldn't allow their artists to be on other labels. Columbia had a policy for years where, I mean, I'd tried for a number of years to do an album with Jeff Beck. We just discussed it about, 5 or 6 different times, but because he's signed with Epic, and that's part of Columbia, they would never let him do anything like that, and so, it could just never come off. But the tendency in the business today is to let things like that, let it slide. They don't take a cut of the artist's share. They just make you put the record company name on the back of the jacket.
I'd like to know what it was like working with Wildman Fisher, and what's he doing today?
Well, it was hell working with Wildman Fisher. I spent 3 months working, sort of like working for Wildman Fisher at the time I was putting his album together. And right now he is walking around the streets of Los Angeles with his album under his arm, still punching people.
In regards to the show last night at the War Memorial, you used the panning effect from side to side a lot. I was wondering, was that being controlled by the soundboard?
By the mixer.
Or the mixing?
Yeah.
Both on the guitar and on the drums?
Yeah. All
Thank
the
you.
panning happens from the board.
Okay, thank you.
And right there.
Yeah, I just like to say something. I don't know how it's gonna come off, but like, when I was a freshman in high school, right? I see your albums on the rack, and I said, yeah, who's this weird motherfucker, you know?
Well, I could hardly blame you.
Yeah, well, you know. All right, and
I said the same thing when I saw your albums out there.
right, but all right, then supposedly I got a little older and I started playing, you know. Supposedly I became a musician. And I would like to say that after checking you out, like I really have a lot of respect for where your head's at in your music. So I just want to say that.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Another thing, like on the cover of Roxy, man, who is that fine chick, man, that's dancing, man?
Well, you see, that's Brenda.
I see. No, but you know, it seemed like you were having a pretty good time, you know.
Oh, that wasn't even the best of what I was having.
All right, well.
That was just the album cover shot.
Yeah. All right, and thank you. And also, George, like, I don't know if you remember, but I caught you at Jackson State around 4 years ago with Cannonball, and like you just came off the truck with Nuisance, and it was pretty nice. So thank you.
Well, since I won't get the mic, you know, I got 3 questions. The first question is, you seem very autonomous, which I respect, which is one of your admirable traits. You remind me a lot in that respect of Lennon. So I was just, if you ever thought of, I don't know if that's bad or good.
I didn't hear the first part of it.
Of Lennon, you remind me a lot of John Lennon, in you know, your autonomistic way.
Johnny, yeah.
And second question is, what was your connection with Alice Cooper, if any? Because a lot of rumor has it that you helped expose Alice Cooper.
Well, actually, Alice Cooper hasn't been exposed yet, but we helped the group get their first record contract. And above and beyond that, may the Lord have mercy on your soul.
And the third and final question was, personally, is there any, other than your own, you know, doing what you want to do for music, anything, any way that you feel that you're helping prosperity, or anything you want to do for prosperity by doing your music? That's a little, you know, complex. But I mean,
helping prosperity? I would say that I am helping prosperity in these ways. I employ 7 musicians in the band, and probably about 10 on the road crew, and another 4 or 5 in the office, and I'm making my contribution to prosperity in that regard. Also to the people who sell me the equipment that I have to drag around on the road, the nice people who built the lights and the PA system. I've assisted their prosperity quite a bit over the past few years, to say nothing of the trucking company and the guy who rents us the bus. You know, I'm just doing my part to keep it circulating.
Did you ever consider working with Lennon, or have you tried?
Well, he jammed with us on stage at the Fillmore East that one time. But other than that, no.
Frank?
Who's Leonard?
You know, John Leonard from the Beatles.
John Leonard?
You mentioned cover design before, and I just wonder how much you would like, or how much control would you like to have of the cover design? Because I find myself, if I don't know a group that well, I judge a record by the cover.
Everybody does.
And I just wonder how much you feel it's important to influence the way the cover is designed.
Well, there's 2 ways to look at that. One, if you are a person who has an idea about, definite ideas about your music and definite ideas about how you want that music to appear at first glance to the person who's going to listen to the record. You know what happens when you get an album? You can't see anything but the cover, and you just look at the cover and you turn it over and you read it, you know, and that's it. The cover is part of the music. And so if you have a strong concept of what you're doing, you want the cover to be integrated with the music. Now, if you know what you're doing, that's good. If you don't, it'll kill you. because you might want to put something on the cover that would be absolutely repulsive to the person going into the store, you know. Suppose your idea of what the music needed was a glossy 8x10 of the group going like this on the front, you know, and you really felt that that was important to what you were saying. Well, suppose the hip mod young person going to a record store saw that and said, this looks like a Dave Clark 5 record, you know. Well, then you would never get your music across to the public at all. Sometimes a new group, when they do their first album, they have ideas about what the cover should look like, but these ideas are often not related to the realities of life. You know, they want to have gold stamping, embossed cutouts, 5-color reproduction on you know, some weird kind of stock, or else they want to have some kind of an illustration on it that is just going to be far too expensive. Now, Warner Brothers has a new policy that anything above a minimum that they set for cover production has to be paid for by the artist. So I think that straightens a lot of them out right away.
Yeah.
I've been collecting a few questions here while I've been waiting, and I have about 5 or so. The first 2 are how come questions. First of all, I've noticed that pre-discrete, when you were in concert, the volume of the concert was substantially different than how it is nowadays. Now it's to the point where discerning between one instrument and the other becomes next to impossible at times, because it becomes so loud that it's hard to tell what's what. And why have you done that?
Well,
I'm sitting there with
let's
rolling
examine
papers.
what you're saying. First of all,
Tired.
you're saying pre-discrete, that the volume was different, right?
Right.
Okay, pre-discrete, I did not have this PA system. Pre-discrete, I was not working in halls the size of the armory that we worked in last night. And when you go into a hall that's very large, I don't know where you're sitting in the hall. If you're sitting right in front of the PA system, you're in trouble, because it is going to be loud. You're playing in a hall that holds 10,000 people. You got to turn it up so the guy in the back is going to be able to hear it. And the reason that we do things like pan the instruments and spread them out, we run a stereo PA, and it makes it easier for a person sitting like about the middle of the hall to pick out who's playing what and where it's coming from. A lot of people who come right down to the front of the stage can't hear anything because they're right at ground level. They're hearing all the amplifiers from the stage playing into their face. They can't hear any vocals because they're not in front of the PA stack itself. And they can't hear any of the panning because all they did was come down there in the front to watch. You know, actually the best place to hear the show from is out where the mixer is, right about the middle of the hall.
Well, I was located about that position, and in listening to some of the newer material, I couldn't understand any of the lyrics at all. And that
well, this will happen no matter where you're playing or where you're listening from, because here's what happens psychologically when a person goes to a concert. If we're advertised and it says Frank Zappa, the Mother's Invention, coming to town, go down, go and see the concert, everybody goes, oh yeah, they'll play my favorite song off such and such, you know, and the audience comes in with the expectation that the group is going to be a human jukebox for their older material. And it's been my experience that the minute you play something that everybody recognizes, and they've already heard the words on a record where it's easier to make it out, everybody thinks, well, you know, I know how it's supposed to go, and so they get along with it that way. If you play new material, nobody has ever heard it before, and nobody's got a chance to figure out the words. You know, there's just too much to fathom. Besides the words, you got the music, you got the choreography, whatever else is going on, the lights, it's all distracting. If any of that material had been on a record before, you know, it would have been easier to discern. We have to play new material in concert for 2 reasons. 1, you get tired of playing the old stuff if you go on the road a lot. 2, you need to develop that material for future albums. And I would say that a concert is a good place to develop it. And I try and strike up a balance between stuff that people will recognize when we play a concert and newer things that might surprise them. The other factor is that what we play on stage has got little or nothing to do with what the mixer does sitting out there in the hall. Now, during the sound check in the afternoon, I set up a basic balance of the group for him, set the equalization on the instruments, get the panning set up. But once the show starts, what the audience hears is the result of what that mixer does. Now, prior to this tour, we rehearsed for a month with a mixer named Stefan. and Stefan learned the songs. And the first concert, Stefan got pneumonia, and that was about a week ago, and this guy has walked in with no rehearsal, and he's mixing the show. I don't know what he's doing out there, and the only way that I can check it is by listening to cassettes that we make off the board each night, and if I hear that he's doing something really wrong in terms of a blend, then I tell him about it. But it's hard to make music in a place that's designed for sports, you know. And the PA is not designed to hurt you. It's just designed to fill the room and make it available.
Yeah, I was wondering, a couple questions.
Where are you? Hello.
Hey, yeah, I was wondering, like, on your talks with cheapness and tile floor love, if they're ad-libbed at all, like when you're talking about
they're
penetration.
100% ad-lib. It's as ad-lib as this hootenanny that we're having here.
Yeah, also, did you really steal hubcaps by El Monte Legion Stadium?
No, I never stole hubcaps because I never had a car. And I couldn't see any reason to get down and get my hands dirty with something made out of chrome.
Oh, wow.
But El Monte Legion Stadium, yes, I played there, but the parking lot was not the fun place.
Yeah, when you get a tour together, say you tour a lot, is this your PA or do you run it? And how do you practice? Do you run a concert hall to practice in to get the mixing down? Do you know the crew?
It's something that you do in gradual stages. First, I bought a building, and then the building has a rehearsal hall in the back that's 60 by 40 feet, and then we set up our PA system inside the building. That we own the PA system. And we practice with the PA, not the whole thing, because we can't set the whole thing up in there. We set up most of it, and we practice for about a month, roughly 6 hours a day with a dinner break for 5 days a week prior to the starting of the tour. And that's what we do.
Mr. Zappa, is there anything you can do about not playing in places that are built for sports? You know, like playing in concert halls?
Well, we do. You know, we play wherever we're booked in to play, and it's a wide variety of places. Like, for instance, when we go to Boston, we're working a theater that holds about 3,000 people. And a lot of times you go to a college, they stick you into a gym. But the real problem is this, that if you are popular and there's a lot of people want to see what you do, and they all want to see you at the same time, you know, there aren't any places that are big that have good acoustics. I can think of maybe 3 in the United States, just stretching it, that are really big, that have even reasonable acoustics. That's something that maybe you can write to your congressman about and have them legislate it.
Yeah, and a lot of times those places that are built like that are made for concert orchestras and not for electric bands, and they still don't sound right. You get a music hall.
How do you choose people who play on your label, Indiscreet?
Well, I haven't been choosing them. You know, from the time that Bizarre and Straight, which was the first 2 labels that I had, from the time that contract ran out, I sort of decided that I was going to spend my time working on just the mother stuff rather than producing other acts, because when you produce a record for somebody else, here's what happens. If it doesn't sell, they tell you it's your fault. If it does sell, it's your fault because it didn't sell more, you know? And so you can't win. And when you figure it takes anywhere from 2 to 3 months to really do an album right, I don't have 2 or 3 months out of the year to produce somebody else. Last year we toured 7 or 8 months, you know? And the rest of the time I'd sort of like to relax, you know? And part of that time that I'm not on the road has to be devoted to working in the studio with the mother stuff. So I just have shied away from outside production. And anything that's been on Discreet has been Herb's choice.
Yeah, and what political role do you see your music taking now?
What political role?
Yeah.
I would say that our music is an alternative to a political role. When you consider that most politics in the United States is nothing more than a role, in the sense that a person rolls a drunk.
Yeah, I'd like to know whatever happened to Roy Estrada and Ray Collins.
Ray Collins is currently employed as a carpenter, living at Don Preston's house. He's trying to get a group together. He has been trying to get a group together for quite some time. Roy Estrada is working someplace in Orange County. I think he might be driving a truck or working in a warehouse.
And how come your Uncle Meat movie was never released?
Because nobody believed in it to the point that they put up the money to finish it. And seeing as how I'm not a millionaire, I didn't have the money to do it to myself.
And lastly, does Cal Schenkel still do your graphics and albums?
Yes, and matter of fact, the next album is probably Cal's best cover, I think. When you see it, it's called One Size Fits All, and he really, it's real good.
I'd like to address a question to any of the three gentlemen. I'd like to hear your views on the occult and a social theory.
Would you care to rephrase that so that the captain can comprehend it?
Well, most music right now is either, oriented around sex, occult, or social theory, or that's sort of a new movement. Would you like to talk on that a little?
I would say that's a gross oversimplification.
Can't get into it. The very same ass that carried man across the deserts of time also gave man the brayless hamburger.
Thank you.
How many say amen to it?
Mr. Zappa?
Yeah, where are you?
Right here.
Hello.
How you doing? I'd like to ask one question about the album We're Only In It For The Money. First of all, did you have a lot of hassles from Capitol Records in releasing that because of the cover? And secondly, are there any weird stories related in the making of it? And thirdly, how's Moon Unit?
Well, I'll go backwards. Moon Unit is fine, Dweezil is fine, Ahmed is fine, Gail is fine, everybody's fine. Now, and now, the story of We're Only In It For The Money. The hassles with the cover were not from Capitol Records, they were from the Beatles themselves, those cute little guys from England. I remember the first time we went to England, I got a phone call from Paul McCartney. He says, would you like to come over and have tea and so forth? And so I discussed this with a number of other people because I was afraid he was going to slip me some acid. And so... I mean, I was afraid I would wind up like that. And so after everybody said, they just told me, well, if you go over there, don't drink anything, you'll be okay. Don't eat nothing, don't drink anything. Somebody comes at you with a needle, run. And so I was supposed to go over there, but then I found out that I had to go to Copenhagen the afternoon. I was supposed to go over to his house. So I remember getting on the phone and talking to him. I said, hello, Paul? Is that you, Paul? Yeah, listen, this is Frank. I can't make it over there today, but I had something I wanted to discuss with you. We're doing this album that's got a cover that looks sort of like Sgt. Pepper, and I wonder whether there'd be any problems. Would you guys complain if we did this cover that was making fun of the Sgt. Pepper album? And it was like, on the other end of the phone, I could see the guy going. And so he finally says, you mean you talk business? And I said, well, I figured it'd be better this way instead of calling up your lawyer. And he says, well, I think that I would have to discuss it with the other members of the group, but our attorneys, I'm sure, would be able to blah, 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 blah. And 11 months later, the album finally came out after going through a bunch of shit with their attorneys and so forth. And there you have it.
Was it worth it?
Sure. That's a good cover. As a matter of fact, I got to tell you one other thing. The place where the cover was printed is called Queens Litho, just outside of New York, and there's this sheet. I wish I still had one of them. I don't know whether you understand about how they print things, but they don't do them one at a time. They gang them up on big sheets of paper, and then they cut them apart. Yeah, well, our covers were so similar, like we were using the exact same color of ink and everything that they were using on their cover, to the point where they were running them on the same sheet, like there are these big sheets like this. The half of it's got the real one on this side and ours on that side, and they're really funny to look at and make great wallpaper.
Frank?
Yeah.
I was just wondering, how much goddamn longer are you going to be around? I mean, you've been...
Well,
I mean, not that I was just, I don't know, I was just a little disenchanted with this late stuff you've been coming up with. And, I mean, really, I thought that we're only in it for the money was your masterpiece. Maybe you should have quit there.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not trying. I mean, I'm not trying to demean you.
No,
I think you're the greatest. But it's
No, a lot of people say the same thing to me every day. Really. That's
I figured maybe if it works around a circle, maybe you come up with a masterpiece like that again.
Oh yeah. Well, gee, I hope so. I mean, if there's one thing that I really want to do, it's make you happy with one of my records.
Thanks.
But in answer to your question, I expect to be around for quite some time.
I have a question for Mr. Van Vliet. What are the Drazy hoops?
Yeah, I wanted to know that too.
Little people with bell caps. True.
I believe it.
So do I.
Directed to all three of you, what do you feel about drugs?
Dope.
Well, no, I always heard those funny commercials about, don't do speed, and Frank was making all sorts of fun of those things, and, I just thought it was a pretty interesting situation. How'd you get into it?
I'm really into Barolo.
Sounds good. How about you, Captain?
It's an Italian wine.
I said dope. No, I mean, I think that the egg is nice, and if you do anything to it, it isn't an egg anymore.
Thank you.
I don't like drugs. I don't use drugs. And if you want to use drugs, that's your business. I was asked to make some commercials to try and divert people from the habit of using methadone or other chemicals that jack you up. If somebody came to me and asked me to make some commercials about steering people away from things that jacked you down, I would. All those commercials can do is just express my view about it, but it's your body. You can do whatever you want. I think it's unfortunate that people get arrested for using drugs in a society that is so strenuous that it makes people want to do that. I think that if you want to feel good or if you want to feel nothing, there are other more efficient ways to do that. I mean, for instance, if you were dead, you'd really be just right out there like that. And perhaps for some people, it's just a slower process of suicide. I don't want to recommend meditation or anything because that's highly commercialized these days, but the human mind is a wonderful instrument and you can direct it any way that you like without the assistance of a guru or any of those little attributes that are going to cost you money. And if you want to feel high all the time, well, just feel high all the time. You really don't need a chemical alteration to do it. That might sound like science fiction, but it really does work. And there you have it.
Thank you.
I just wanted to know why the back of the Mother Mania album is all printed in German.
It's a news clipping from a concert that we did in Berlin in 1968.
Thank you.
It tells about this riot that we had there when there were some communists in the audience that tried to start a bunch of trouble.